A little bit about the victims of the Mumbai terrorist attack. If you want to say a few words about those victims and all those victims that have suffered injuries and how we should remember them, because everything is completely overshadowed now because of the situation in the Middle East, and I fear that people have forgotten.
Yeah, it is very important that these victims, the victims of terrorist attacks in Mumbai and other terrorist attacks in India, Hindu victims, are remembered, that their memories are not dishonored. So we must pray for them, and we must have vigil, as we are today, to honor their memories. Beyond just honoring their memories, it would be somewhat of an insult to their memory if we were not to learn the lessons from these terrorist attacks and make sure that the government of India takes the appropriate action to prevent this sort of thing from happening again. At the moment, that is certainly not the case. The government of India's policies are the policies of appeasement. The policies involved systematically ignoring and overlooking the terrible things, the terrible acts, the terrible oppression that has befallen the Hindu community in the interest of maintaining relations with a nation, Pakistan, which is clearly a sponsor of terrorism, which is causing all these casualties in the first place. This is completely unacceptable.
How do you explain the world's indifference to Islamic terrorism? I mean, you don't hear a lot. I mean, you hear the same problem that until this current crisis, you hear about a terrorist attack here, and it's a little blur, but maybe it's a page, and then we move on. Explain the world's indifference to Hindus in India, to Israel, to the victims of this terrorism, where they only seem to stand up and pay attention when innocents in Gaza or in Lebanon are being killed, but they don't seem to be as disturbed when Hindus in India or Jews in Israel are killed by terrorist attacks. How do you reconcile this?
Absolutely. There's a definite double standard in terms of the world and how they view certain events. With Hindus in particular, the indifference is quite profound from many directions. You know, there are those who prefer to focus on, you know, the so-called oppression of Palestinians or certain other minorities in the world, while completely systematically neglecting the far greater oppression which is taking place against Hindus in the world. In particular, for example, in the state of Kashmir, 450,000 Hindus have been ethnically cleansed, driven out of the state, and are languishing in refugee camps in other parts of India, and they have been driven out by state-sponsored terrorism, Islamic terrorists sponsored and supported by Pakistan. But all the world can do is talk about the poor Palestinians and forget about the Hindus, the 450, the much larger number of Hindus who are suffering in Kashmir.
How do we explain this?
Well, we explain it from the point of view of a misplaced focus, of perhaps a very loud minority, perhaps certain ethnic groups who tend to exaggerate their so-called suffering and oppression while ignoring everybody else's oppression. It's also explained partly by the indifference of the Indian government, especially the current government of India, which basically has betrayed Hindus and is doing nothing to help or to publicize the plight of Hindus in India. So there's plenty of blame to go around, all around. And to the extent that I want to be fair and even balanced here, there's also, the West has some blame here too. That when people are killed in New York and London, they pay a lot of attention. But many more people are killed in India and in Mumbai, and often they do not pay attention. So it almost seems like Hindus are considered to be children of a lesser god, so to speak, where their concerns and their suffering is completely neglected and ignored, and this completely has to stop.